Hey everybody, it's been a really long time since I've posted anything live on my Facebook feed, but I thought I'd do it. And most of the reason for that is because I've been working for a long time with some incredible people to really put together the most advanced and effective treatment for anxiety conditions. And we've now got there and we're just launching that. For those people that don't know me, I suffered with anxiety for 22 years. I suffered from the age of 4 till I was 26. And when I was 27 years old, I developed a self-spun, homespun methodology that worked for me. And since then, I've helped many, many people, putting numbers on it, in excess of 500,000 people using that program. And we now have the most qualified team of true mental health professionals using psychoeducation in this methodology that we use. It's the simplest, most effective, science-based, evidence-based methodology possible. It works. It can't not work. It just uses the science of the human body to provide the antidote to anxiety conditions. And that brings me to a really important point, because I want to make something very, very clear. These conditions possibly that you're suffering from, what you loosely call anxiety disorders. I call them fear disorders because anxiety is disorder. So what you're experiencing is the disorder of fear. What is fear? It's an emotion, Charles. No, it's not. Fear is not an emotion. The emotions, the human emotions, are generated in the synapses of the brain. They're generated as the coming together of endocrine response, chemical response, neurological response, so electrical response, and the physiology of the human brain. And they produce the emotions. So when you're happy, you might laugh or smile. And those responses are generated in the brain and activated in the human body to give yourself and other people the experience of happiness. That's what an emotion is, whether it's happiness, sadness, or jealousy, or any other emotional response. It is chemically and electrically and physically generated in the brain, which obviously sits inside of your head. Fear is not generated in the brain. It is not what I've just mentioned. Fear is activated as a physical endocrine response in the body to prepare your body to deal with threat. That is something very, very different. Now, I know you'll be saying to me, and I'm pretty passionate about this, so please hear me out. You'll be saying to me, yes, but I've been to a counsellor and a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and they've told me I've got a mental illness and it's a chemical imbalance and it's caused by trauma, and that the only way to get out of it is to take medication to suppress it, or to talk about it, or to keep anxiety diaries, or to tap myself or move my eyes in a certain way, or whatever technique you've been told. I can tell you now for certain, and with the greatest of respect to those people, because they might not know what they're doing isn't right. But the absolute crux of the matter in this is that they are not right. The science is wrong. Because fear isn't an emotion, it can't be treated like an emotion. It can't be treated like sadness or grief or happiness or guilt or any of those other emotional responses that we experience. And it certainly can't be subdued with medications. Yes, there are medications that people with anxiety can take that might slow their heartbeat. For example, beta blockers might do that, something like propranolol. Or they might take an antidepressant, especially nowadays, something like an SSRI, Prozac or Seroxat or one of those. But they're not designed to treat an anxiety condition. Why? Because you can't treat fear. You can only create some form of sedative response in the body that subdues your experience of the fear. But it doesn't fix the problem. But why is that? Because none of those things have been developed to fix fear. You can't fix fear any more than you can fix digestion. Digestion is something that is happening to you naturally. It's neurological, it's physiological, it's chemical, and it's happening without your physical intervention and your conscious intervention. It just happens, like your breathing and your heart rate. Now look, you can manipulate things like your heart rate by running fast, for example, and that sends your heart rate up, but your heart rate will always go back to its kind of factory preset, which I call the genetic preset for you. And it's all dependent on your fitness levels, of course. And it's the same with your digestive tract. It does what it does. You don't need to think about it. You're breathing. It does what it does. You don't have to think about it. And it's the same with fear response. Fear response happens as the result of your senses detecting threat. And once it's detected that threat, and if it's a legitimate threat, it responds with a fear response. But that doesn't happen in your brain. It bypasses your brain completely, actually. The only role your brain has in producing a fear response is that once it's gathered all the data through your senses, it says, what if? And that's a risk assessment. What if the tiger attacks me? What if I don't run? What if I bop that person on the nose? But once that risk assessment is done and that data is gathered, it goes straight through your brain through what's called the amygdala, and it goes straight to the adrenal glands and activates a fear response and other stress hormones like cortisol. But and I won't get too technical about this, but the point is, the reason that your psychotherapy, counselling, CBT, DBT, NLP, EFT, EMDR, that your medication, that your constant tapping and relaxation and doing yoga and downloading apps, the reason that hasn't cured your anxiety condition is very simple. Because they can't. Because they don't address the core science. And if something doesn't address the core science, how is it supposed to cure it? You know, if you've got something wrong with your heart, you go to see a cardiologist. If you've got something wrong with your hormones, you go to see an endocrinologist. If you've got something wrong with your, your feet, you might go to a podiatrist. If you've got something wrong with your spine, you might go to a physiotherapist, and so on. And then there'll be specialisms as well. So if a physiotherapist can't fix your back, they might send you to a consultant surgeon who might look at your back and say, okay, well, we need to put a rod in here or fix this problem. But ultimately, it's science-based. In other words, they look at your back, they x-ray your back, they see where the problem is, they refer you to the right person that fixes that problem, and they scientifically fix it. None of it is conjecture or theory or just, the use of thought. But psychology and psychiatry come from psychology. Now, psychology is a field of study. It isn't science. It's a field of study. And just because somebody says they're a psychologist doesn't mean they understand how to manipulate your body and mind to create recovery. They don't have the physiology, the understanding of the physiology, and the understanding of the actual science of your condition to be able to fix it. And that's why you haven't been fixed. It's very simple. Yeah, but Charles, why do you know all this? Well, A, I spent 22 years suffering from these conditions and researching them. And B, I found a solution that worked for me. I created it and tested it. It worked for other people. The NHS tested it and said it was the most effective way to recover from an anxiety condition. And then other bodies, including Copenhagen University, put it through testing, and they found it to be the most effective way to completely remove anxiety conditions. Whether that's generalized anxiety or panic attacks or agoraphobia or monophobia or health anxiety or eating disorders or globus hystericus or self-harming or any of those conditions. This process has to be adhered to in order to recover. There is no other solution. And people will say, I get constantly attacked by psychologists and psychiatrists and doctors saying, what have you done to my clients? They've disappeared. Well, I cured them. The reason they're not coming to you is because what you did not work. In fact, in most cases, it made it worse because you didn't understand the psychophysiology of the condition. So I've used the psychophysiology of the condition, and we've reverse engineered the production of their anxiety condition. In some cases, we've developed a diagnostic tool that not only diagnoses somebody's anxiety condition, but more than that, it can be applied to a young person, maybe a 4 or 5-year-old child, for example, and it diagnoses predisposition to suffering. What does that mean? They may not have anxiety, but it diagnoses their ability to ever develop anxiety, because not everybody can. And that's the absolute truth of it. Now, if psychologists and psychiatrists come on here and nasty people come on here after I've posted this and say, yeah, but Charles, you're a charlatan because you said this and you did that and you did the other. Okay, look, I'm going to paraphrase somebody else I heard say this the other day, and I'm going to be very clear on this. Prove that anything I've said is wrong. Prove that the science that I'm quoting from isn't correct. Psychology, psychophysiology, neurology, endocrinology, biology, physiology. Prove to me, tell me the one thing that I've said wrong. Any doctor or psychologist out there, psychiatrist, endocrinologist, any ist of any kind, tell me where my science is wrong, and I'm prepared to listen. But I'm telling you that over the last 30 years, since I've been doing, running these programs, building up our organization, educating recovery practitioners, and running our retreats and workshops and doing our corporate programs and developing all these resources, not once has a psychiatrist, psychologist, or any other ist sat in front of me, and I've had many dozens of them, believe me, at any of our retreats or events and said, Charles, what you've said was wrong. Why? Because it's not wrong. You know, I've had people say to me, oh my God, I'm a psychiatrist and I can't believe what you're saying. This is exactly right. This is what I was taught in medical school and then told to forget when I went to psychiatry school. I've had psychologists sit in front of me and I've said to them, okay, so what's a panic attack? And they can't answer the question. I've said, where are the adrenal glands? They can't answer the question. And yet these are people who claim to be treating people with these conditions. How dare you sit in front of somebody with panic attacks and not know what a panic attack is? How dare you treat people with anxiety conditions and not know where cortisol or adrenaline is produced, how it's secreted, where it's secreted? How dare you sit there with people with lumps in their throats and not be able to tell them what the lump in the throat is, how it's created, what it means physiologically, how it developed from an evolutionary perspective? How dare you tell these people that you can help them? And these are just 3 examples of the nonsense spun by people that I trusted, that I lost my home to, that I lost my livelihood to, because I believed that because they had letters after their name and because they said that they got degrees or done courses, I believed that my money was being paid to somebody who could help me. And in not one case was it true. And in the 560,000 people that we have helped since 1997, not one has ever come forward in a retreat, a workshop, a live webinar and told me that their doctor or psychologist has told them anything about what we're teaching them. It is appalling. If you suffer from an anxiety condition, regardless of how it manifests, regardless of how long you've suffered or how intense it feels, or regardless of the symptomology of what you've got, the lineup of the symptoms or the conditions, whether you've got OCD or Puro or panic disorder or agoraphobia or health anxiety or eating disorders, regardless of how it manifests in you, you can and will fully recover as long as you understand and do with your body and mind exactly what your body and mind were created to do. In other words, if you suffer from an anxiety condition, you can remove it quickly and fully as long as you do what it takes to do that. But nobody in psychology, psychiatry, counselling or any of those associated practices understand or can tell you what that is. Why? Because their practice model is based on constant repetition of the same guidance and the same rules that exist only within their practice models. And those practice models are not recovery models. They are maintenance, they are management, they are coping, and that's it. Why? Because if they cured everybody with an anxiety condition, they'd have nobody left to treat. And we've been told this by NHS bodies. Charles, we love your program, we know it cures people, but we can't use it because if we use it, we cure everybody. If we cure everybody, we lose our budgets. If we lose our budgets, we can't employ our staff. So we have a policy of maintenance of the body of clients. And you are the client, you the patients are the clients. They're not paid to cure you, they're paid to manage you. End of. And if CBT as a practice, for example, cognitive behavioural therapy, it's based on 3 data points for its efficacy. They say it's the gold standard of practice. They say it's evidence-based practice. What's the evidence? The evidence is this. Did you turn up for your first session? If you did, good. If you didn't, you must be cured. If you don't keep coming to all 6 sessions, and you only get 6 by the way, if you fail to turn up to 3 or 4 or 5, you're cured. If you fail to come back for more sessions and you're not offered any more sessions anyway, you're cured. So no matter what happens, if you have CBT, you end up cured. You might have moved to a different country or lost your job or not be able to afford any more or not be able to get there because your car's broken down, but you'd be cured. They don't base their evidence on we took this body of people, we put them through CBT or any other process, and this amount of people were completely recovered. If that were the case, that's called recovery efficacy. They can't show recovery efficacy because they don't produce recovery. So all they can show is, did they turn up? And if the answer is no, you must be cured, because why else wouldn't you turn up? When we put our people through NHS trials, it was they did the programme for this amount of time, they came in with this GAD-7 rating of 18.24 out of 21, so they were severe, and when they left it was 2.84 out of 21. They were cured. And they were blown away. Not just the clients, the NHS were blown away, and we were shown the door, because that can't work for their business model. If you want to recover from an anxiety condition and you feel passionate about helping other people to recover from an anxiety condition, just do this. Just do this one thing and it will cure you forever. Don't listen to those BS mongers on social media. They say, oh, it's all about diversion. Charles' method is all about diversion. It's not all about diversion at all. In fact, it's not even slightly about diversion. Where they get that idea from is that they look at a bit of it and hear what people say and go, oh, it's just about diversion. And then they go out to poison people against us, against my much more highly qualified, much more highly experienced staff than they will ever be. And certainly the staff that produce recovery in the vast majority of our patients and clients. Why? Because we use science. We don't want to keep making money from you. We want to teach you how to do this and let you live your lives. But live your lives as the fulfilled, happy, non-anxious, incredible people you can become. Because you wouldn't suffer from an anxiety condition if you weren't incredible. That's the fact. Only incredible people suffer from these conditions. And about 50% of the population don't have the ability to suffer. But just because you do doesn't mean you're incurable. And just because your tablets, your CBT, DBT, NLP, EFT, your laying on of hands, anything that you've tried has failed, doesn't mean that you can't be cured. It just means you've gone to the wrong people. You've asked the wrong people. And don't get me wrong, some of these people might be very present people. You know, family people, the people who've got kids and are nurturing and offer you a cup of tea and a slice of cake when you go for the sessions. I'm not saying they're not pleasant people. What I'm saying is they don't have the ability to help you. So just don't listen to them. Do not waste any more time listening to people that can't help you. And if you don't trust me, come ask questions, talk to my staff, talk to Beth or to Kathy or to Jackie or to anybody else from the organisation. The people that have been with me for over 20 years, that have seen tens of thousands of people recover when they do this. But don't listen to people that say, oh, it didn't work. Because most of those people haven't joined as members, they haven't had the full programme material, they haven't accessed the support, they haven't been to my webinars, they haven't listened to the advice. On every Monday at 6 p.m. UK time, I do a live recovery webinar. Sometimes it's somebody else, sometimes it's Ben or maybe Kathy. But most of the time it's me, where I sit like this, you post questions, I answer them live. Try and catch me out. Come to those sessions and try and catch me out. Ask me anything about anything that you experience. Symptoms, thoughts, sensations. Ask me anything. Ask me anything about my life as doing what I've been doing for the last 30 years. Helping over 560,000 people, by the way. I mean, not only have we helped 560,000 people through these courses, we've helped over 30 million people through our videos, books, audios. Go to charles-linden.com and just have a look at just a small handful of the people we've helped. Go to lindenmethodreviews.com, lindenmethodreviews.com, and look at the tens of thousands. I mean, there's a selection of thousands of the tens of thousands of 5-star reviews and the messages of thanks that we've had. And they're copied and pasted. They're not in any way fabricated, contrary to what some people say about me. Why would I have to fabricate reviews? You know, a psychologist might have 1 or 2 little comments on their website. Even a psychological organisation might have a handful of people saying, oh, I came to your facility, it was really nice and the food was great and the staff were lovely. You know, all I'd need to do is generate 10 legitimate reviews to beat all of that. I've got thousands. Go to lindenmethodreviews.com and just take a look. Those aren't fabricated reviews. Those are people saying, you've changed my life, you've saved my life. Not just me, my staff as well. Why do we run the anxiety recovery retreats? I've done for 12 years now. Thousands of people have been and recovered. And on the anxietyrecoveryretreat.com website, .co.uk website, you'll see all of those people. Some of them are well-known people saying, this has cured me. Just this year, we helped a guy that won the Olympics rowing last year, got a gold medal. A guy called Rory, incredible guy, who's given his testimonial saying this is the only method that works. It not only helped me, it helped the rowing team on the whole year. We've got celebrities, we've got supermodels, we've got sports people. You know, it's what we do works, and it works for a reason because it follows science. If you decide that you still want to go down the psychology or psychiatry route, what can I do to stop you? But who would you rather help you? Somebody who's done a week on anxiety conditions at medical school and then is prescribing you medication. Somebody who's done a short course in CBT, they bought off Woucher and sits there proclaiming to know what to do and it hasn't helped you or anybody else at all. Or somebody that suffered for 22 years, recovered, wrote it down, used it and has helped 560,000 people. And that has got NHS and Capita and University of Copenhagen behind them saying this is what works because it's science. The point of the matter is, we wouldn't have been around for 30 years if we were doing something wrong. And for the handful of nasties that go on social media and try and poison, the tree for us, Charles Linton's a charlatan. Not one has been able to prove that myself or anybody else has done anything wrong. Not one person has come forward to prove that anything we say about the science of anxiety and recovery is wrong. And all of the evidence stacks up to say that what we do works. Why? Because it's the science. Please, please don't suffer another day. Please just, even if it's just messaging us, WhatsApping us, or sending us an email to find out how we can help you, or your child, or anybody else that you care about, please do not ignore this, because my passion for recovery, creating recovery in people, I'm sure you can hear it, but it's based on actual fact, not on supposition, not on lies, not on theory, and not on the nonsense peddled by these people. Oh, the anxiety quick fix, I've got the anxiety cure, it's CBT based. Nah, it won't work, can't work. That's the reserve of charlatans out there peddling their ebooks and peddling their courses on TikTok or wherever to get you hooked in. My team are are professional mental health psychologists, counsellors, psychotherapists who have trained in this methodology and have been treating people for over 30 years. If you want to trust anybody, trust people that have suffered, have high levels of qualification, high levels of experience, and that can prove that they can create recovery in you and everybody else they help. I promise you that the solution is here, but you just need to listen and do. It's so simple, and we're here for you. Take care.